up, YouTube? So I did my very first TBR for November, and I had a feeling that it wasn't going to work out so well. So I have read those books, but I did not want to make a video for them for some reason. I don't know why I stressed about it for so long. So I guess the best way to get back into it would be to just do it. I gotta do it. So we're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing a book review. We're doing book reviews. I got four books. I felt like that was an acceptable amount for a video. So we're gonna do 4. It's not like 4 is my favorite number. Don't particularly like 4, but 3 seems like not enough, and 5 seems like too much. So we're going with 4. Let's do this. All right. So off of that November TBR, which I've read a bunch of books since then, I just decided not to do any more videos. I don't know. I just knew it was going to go wrong somehow. By setting up a TBR and having to read those books and tape that video by the end of December, it, I don't know, messed with my brain, and I knew it was going to. I knew that was going to be too much pressure. That's why I had decided early on that I wasn't going to do that. I was just going to do the book reviews for the books that I had read as I was reading them, and that's what I did at the start of my channel. They got, like, very few views. They have, like, 8 and 10 views, but whatever, that's the whole purpose of this. This is why I'm doing this. I'm gonna start doing a lot more of them because that's what I want to do, and yeah, so it's happening. So we're gonna start with books that I read in November because that's the only way to get caught up. Shit happens. Life happens. I'm doing this because I love to do this, because I love books, and I want everybody else in the world to love books, because
they expand your brain. It's so good for you. It's happening.
So we're going to start with The Wicked by James Newman. This dude has probably been waiting so long for me to put a review out here on this book, because we kind of went back and forth a little on Facebook and Instagram, him and I. And I'm already ready to reread this book. It was so wonderful. It's so hard to put into words. But I would have to say, this would be one of my favorite books that I read last year. The Wicked, a novel of unholy terror by James Newman. This book is so badass. It's so wonderful. This is a horror novel that I got via Nocturnal Readers Box. It was released in May of 2012. It's set in a small town in North Carolina. I'm guessing like present time. It's about a family named the Littles who moved from New York to North Carolina to escape the evils of the big city, only to have chaos ensue almost immediately. Reviewers reference this as an homage to 80s horror, which is unbelievably true. It's very clever and creepy and disturbing, and so weird because his writing is so familiar that it's eerie. I've yet to come up with a way to articulate even what that means. Like, it's so weird. I feel like I had read this book before, but of course I never have. I've since also read another of his books, a short little one called Odd Man Out, and I couldn't help notice the same thing about that book too. It's not exactly even horror, or it's not nearly in the same way that The Wicked is. It's a different type of book. I couldn't help notice it, but with that book as well, it seemed so familiar, almost like I had read it before, or almost like I could have written it myself. Not like I'm a writer or on par with his awesomeness, but it felt so much like deja vu, and I guess that's the only way to really describe it. The characters are really real and present throughout the story, but the real star of it was definitely the antagonist, Moloch, and his little winged devils, which are absolutely the stuff of nightmares. They're incredibly creepy, and Styx with you in your brain. It's something you hold on to. So pacing of the book was on point. It moved quickly from one scene to another. My memory of it is almost like a movie roll. I could literally picture the different scenes in my head. He's so good at, I guess, describing that. That's got to be him and his writing style, right? That I hate that I can't put into words exactly why I love this book so much, but I really did. My favorite part of this book was that I experienced an instantaneous immersion into this book. The first few pages had me just reveling in it, wanting to thoroughly soak it into my system as opposed to plowing through it and getting to the end of it. I didn't want it to end at all, so I'm not sure what makes a book so solid gold when you experience that. So if anybody could tell me, James, I know you're going to listen to this, so what makes you so wonderful? I don't know. You just got it. You got it, buddy. It's solid freaking gold. A+ for originality. Dislikes? I don't recall a dislike. Sorry, not sorry. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. I really love this book. Let's see. I don't even remember what I would have tagged. Let's see if it... This really... Okay, so I guess I had tagged this in a spot with a portion. It really resonates with what I was saying about the little winged creatures. It says... her imagination had then taken the ball and run with it, and even if the child had not been consciously aware of reading that word somewhere in Daddy's stacks of books, there was no doubt in David's mind that she had seen it. Her subconscious had stored it away, dredging it up again when the time came for a harmless, perfectly explainable nightmare. That is exactly what those little winged creatures are. They are something that'll just pop up in your worst nightmare someday. So, and then let's see, what else did I mark? It says, oh well, what had to be done had to be done. What was that saying he'd heard a few times, usually from his friends at the bar? It isn't paranoia when they're really out to get you. Fred said aloud to the night's growing breeze. That really resonated for me as well, for some reason. I'm not sure. Not like anybody's out to get me. It's not paranoia when they're really out to get you. I thought that was clever. So I really like those two parts of the book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 because I absolutely loved it. That instant immersion thing was wonderful. I super dig that. I'd love to be able to know how to do that. Maybe that's what it's like. He just is that awesome that it just comes out of him in waves and you have this wonderful outcome. The next book I finished was The Long Walk by Stephen King / Richard Bachman, writing as Richard Bachman. I got a t-shirt from Nocturnal Readers Box. This t-shirt. It had The Long Walk on it. Had no idea what they were talking about. I felt very upset that I had no idea what they were talking about. So I immediately Googled it, and it looked so great, and it was amazing. I really loved this book as well. So it came out in 1979. It's a psychological thriller / dystopian. It follows 100 teenage boys who join the Long Walk. It's a race set in the future that occurs annually. So there's only one winner, and not only do you receive whatever you want, but you get to live, unlike the other 99 contestants. This seems so absurd because it's not something that would happen. I feel like it's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. It makes you think and contemplate. It's such an odd thought that there'd be so many boys willing to throw their life away for such a chance, because you do have to sign up for this. You have to willingly do this. I didn't get the impression from anybody that they're forced to do it. Unbelievable. The characters of the story and each character's backstory and person add to everything that's at stake. Their physical pain is explained to such an extent that you garner sympathy for them as you're reading the book. It makes it real and unforgettable, like as it happens and as they begin to understand actually what's happening and what they've gotten themselves into. The pacing can be a tiny bit slow, but also fast at the same time. I think that's because it's excruciating as it goes along, because you're counting down the deaths of these kids as you go. I think it's safe to say that, because, I mean, that's the whole purpose of it, is for them to be in this race and to actually go through with this. So it's no secret that they're all going to die as the book goes on. So it's very intense in that way. And too much feeling. You're worried. It's like it's going too slow, but at the same time, you're worried that it's going too fast because you don't want more people to die. So it's a weird feeling of loss that comes in not wanting the book to end, because you know everybody's gonna freaking die. My favorite part of this book is that I would have never picked it out for myself, and I love, love, love this book. So I'm so grateful to Nocturnal Readers Box for sending me the t-shirt that led me to reading this book. It was so refreshing to read such a different type of book from Stephen King. It reminded me how nice it is to read outside my box. My dislike for this book is I borrowed it from the library, so I don't own it. And I already want to reread it, and I will have to purchase it at some point. While we were at the library at that time, I was browsing through their audiobooks and saw that they had Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. It was out in front because it was B, so it was right at the start under Bradbury. I'm a bit of a horror fanatic and somehow had never seen this movie. Well, my boss had mentioned this past Halloween that this was his favorite movie to watch time of year. So I Googled it and I found out it was based on a book. So of course I wanted to read the book instead of watch the movie, and I made a mental note for the future to read the book. But when we happened to go to the library and I saw they had it on audiobook, I picked it up. Side note, total first world problem right here. Having to change the CD every hour while you're trying to drive made me realize just how spoiled for Audible I am. Shout out Audible. I love me some Audible. Again, I pay for Audible. I'm not sponsored. I pay for Audible, so I love me some Audible, and I did not enjoy having to change the CD every hour. 13-year-old best friends, Jim and William. Jim Nightshade and William Holloway. And they must endure a demonic circus that preys on their town. The proprietor of said circus are Cougar and Dark with their Pandemonium Shadow Show, I believe. Not Sideshow, Shadow Show. The circus is strange and out of date. I don't know if that was a reflection of the age of the book or an exaggeration of the age of the book, like when he wrote it in the 60s, if he was like trying to show how it was back in the day, so it was even further back in the day. It's so different that it actually is a tiny bit scary, because there's a lot of parts where you have absolutely no idea what he's talking about. So I had to Google a calliope, and there was a lot of pictures of like vintage circus that was pretty scary, so I think that kind of helps. Maybe if the book had some vintage circus pictures, it might have helped. I found the pacing to be slow for my taste. The scares were so delicate in nature that I was left wanting. It's more poetic in nature than in-your-face thrills. But the movie did tend to be a bit quicker and to the point and included more scares than the book did. So maybe the visuals of the movie helped add to the scary parts that weren't in the book, but maybe they also felt the need to spice it up. So did they kind of see what I saw, that it needed a little spicing up? So that's why I added extra stuff in there to round it out. I'm not really sure. But that reminds me of one of the additions that they made was really obvious, whereas in the book, that part of it, that character, I don't even think was there, or it was more of just like a subtle suggestion. Didn't lay it out for you. My like for this book is the two boys and their friendship. I really like their friendship together. They're kind of like night and day, yet they're really good friends and have grown up together. I really love their friendship. And I also like the movie better than the book. So my like is the movie. I think it was more enjoyable than the actual book. My dislike for the book was these moments of verbal tangents that I felt had nothing to do with the story. I think it happened like mostly at the beginning of a paragraph before he would get back into the story and what was going on. The same can be said about some of the words he used. I kept thinking that maybe it was due to the age of the book, but I've read older books and didn't have the same confusion. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So, what you gonna do? It was kind of a bummer in that way. So, I think I only gave it 3 stars. 3. The last book that I read is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. This book was released in 2001, and it makes me feel so late to the game. Like, how did I not notice? How did I not know this existed? This is amazing, and it came out like the year I graduated. I just can't believe that I never knew about it. It's a fantasy novel set in mid-modern day America. It's the first book that I've read by Neil Gaiman, and I've not yet seen the TV show, so of course I wanted to read the book before I watched the TV show. It's about a guy named Shadow who's released from prison, and his world is immediately turned upside down when his wife is killed. I feel like I can tell you this because it's known very early on and is part of the premise of the book. Like, he ends up being recruited by Wednesday to work for him. And that's kind of the whole point of it. Yeah. So it even says in the blurb that she's killed right before he's released from prison. That is why he abandons his old life and goes on to work with Wednesday. So I found it to be an amazing book. I really loved it. It had a lot of side stories and got off track here and there, but I really enjoyed all of those adventures and all of the people that he met throughout the book. It was, for some reason, it was sad and deep and lovely, and I'm a big fan of the characters in this book. This one will definitely stick with me, which I feel like I've said about so many of the books that I read, but man, this was a hit month. Like, I read The Wicked, which was a 5, and The Long Walk I felt to be a 5. American Gods I really loved, and if I put it as a 4 on Goodreads, I'll be changing it to 5 because I really genuinely super loved it. I also, on Audible, right at this time, was reading The Goldfinch, or listening to The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which I will be doing a review on. Oh my gosh, 5. Like, oh, I so loved it. There's people out there that had some not as wonderful reviews, and I happen to absolutely super love it. I really, really, really did. So I will be doing a review about that soon. Back to American Gods. My like for this book is that it was so beautifully written. I will definitely reread this. I hope I can find another of his books that I like as much as this one. I started listening to Neverwhere on Audible, and I lost interest pretty quickly. So I don't know if it's that I need to start it over, keep plowing through. I'm not sure. This one I really loved, though. My dislike was it wanders a bit here and there. I do have the 10th anniversary edition that includes extra, and I wonder how much of that extra is maybe the little bit of fluff that I didn't like and would make a difference. So I'll never really know because I read the long version first, and I would never be able to tell the difference if I read it again, if it was missing something. So what you gonna do? I really loved this book as well. Definitely 5. Yeah, really enjoyed this book. So thank you so much for joining me if you stuck through it this much. I hope to be doing more reviews, so hopefully it'll go a little more fluidly next time. But thank you so much for joining me. Peace out.